Oh my goodness. Before he speaks, you're going to get to see my next guest. I've told you about him. I get it. You're all pumped. You're all excited. I got questions out the yin yang. We'll get to some of them. But before we do any of that, Lou, how the freak are you?
Good. How are you? It's so good to see you.
I know. I can't believe we scheduled this, what, 8 years ago or 6 months ago this summer? When did we schedule this?
It's been a while because I know I saw you not too long ago. I guess it was in the summer.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's good to see you again, and thanks for having me on.
Oh, I'm pumped. All right, before we get into how we met, what's your one word? I need a word. I ask all my guests,
One
good,
word.
bad, or ugly, to best describe your past 30 days and why. What would be your word?
Can I use an F word?
You can, as long as you go F word.
No, actually, it's fun. I mean, I've just been screwing around and doing what I want and going to traveling, and it's crazy.
Really?
This laptop lifestyle is a real thing. Who would have known it?
Okay, so you said traveling. Where?
Yes.
Tell us more.
Last week I went to New York City, which is always fun, for like
Ooh.
24 hours. And I went to Los Angeles about a month ago and saw some concerts and saw some old friends. So it's really, I mean, that's the fun thing about working for yourself, is I pretty much decide where I want to go, when I want to go.
Yeah.
And now that the kiddies are out of the house and all grown up and on their own, I'm like, oh my God, I found all this sort of new freedom.
Oh, that's right. You have twins, right?
I have 25-year-old twins. I think they're 25. How can they be 25? I was just 25.
I want to know, how was that? I mean, was it like all fun and games at times, or was it like, or both?
I'll be honest with you, the first 2 years were like a blur of just no sleep and just an absolute, chaos. We had to, I worked and lived in Los Angeles at the time, and we were like launching a new cable network. So I'm like, oh, great. I just gave birth to 2 kids. Now I got to give birth to a TV network or whatever. So that was kind of crazy, but it all settled down eventually. But yeah, those first couple of years, I'm like, oh my God, nothing can prepare you for twins.
All right. And I don't know, are they boys and girls,
One
boys?
boy, one girl. One boy, one girl.
And do they get along?
Yeah, they get along well. Yeah.
That's great.
So, and now I just have 2 pugs, which is kind of like having 2 2-year-olds, but.
And I see them all the time on social media.
Yeah, they get more visibility than I do.
Yeah, you love your pugs.
They're way more popular than me online. So
all our animals are. All right.
Yeah.
So before we dive into it, Lou and I met taking a speaking course, heroic public speaking, together. We were in the same group.
Mm-hmm.
So when I told my friends that, and they looked at your background, the biggest question they had is, why did Lou want to do a keynote speaking course? That was the biggest question they had.
That's a good question. And I didn't at first. When we went to that first heroic public speaking thing in New Jersey, I was like, I'll just go check it out, because I haven't seen Mike. I've known Michael and Amy for many, many, many years, back in the Book Yourself Solid days, probably a dozen years at least. So, and I hadn't seen him in a long time. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go to the speaking thing. I'll do a little networking. I think it was pre-pandemic, wasn't it? Right before that?
Yeah.
And so I had no intention of, like, I don't want to be a speaker. I'm an introvert. I'm relatively shy. I don't like to be in front of a lot of people. But after hanging out with you and the rest of the gang for a couple of days, I was like, I want to be part of this. And honestly, a lot of it was the community, because people like you, I'm like, oh, if I get to play with these folks for a couple of years, then that's awesome.
I thought I remember you saying that, like, that you weren't really thinking you were going to stay around.
No, I mean, I was just like, it was basically, it was an opportunity to see some people, catch up with Michael and Amy. And I knew several people who were going to be there. So it was kind of like, oh, it'll just be a fun way. Because I mean, as much as I'm an introvert, I like to see my friends and my, colleagues a little bit at a time. Like 2 or 3 days is fine. And after that, I get burnt out.
All right. So then what was it like being on stage for you the first time?
It was a little intimidating. I mean, it was, it's just not what I'm used to. I'm kind of used to, I do online videos, so I'm used to Zoom. I'm used to like looking at that little dot up there on the camera. But when you're in a live audience with people, and I had spoken before, a lot, but I had spoken about video and video marketing, which is kind of what I do for my day job. And when I did the
Yeah.
heroic public speaking, I was going to I'm going to talk about a whole different subject. I'm going to talk about growing up in an Italian neighborhood and that whole kind of thing. So it was a total departure from what I was normally doing.
And we loved it.
I hope. So, yeah, it was
By
fun.
the
But
way,
again,
if
it's
you
the
get
people
an
that put it all
opportunity,
together.
if you get an opportunity to see Lou on stage, it's a hoot. I
Right.
mean, your humor, your timing, it's just magnificent.
Oh, thanks. But that's not my
I am
business.
glad
I had to kind of, lean into it a little bit.
you had a gentle nudge from
Yeah.
people.
So like you, I'm very reserved and very shy, and because I know you're also a very, very quiet wallflower kind of person, right?
Mhm.
As I see
That's
you
how they
dancing
describe
on
me.
TikTok and Zoom and like, oh, there's Sandy. Because you
Listen,
show up. I mean, you show up. The first day that we met, I was like, who is that chick with the sparkly sneakers? And, I think you had just sparkly sneakers on.
well, Lou, opposite of you
Yeah.
at the time,
Yeah.
I love being on stage and entertaining.
Yeah.
Now, if I just had your timing and the two of us could meet, it would be really, really awesome. But anything, I'll just get up there and talk about anything. And
Yeah.
like Michael Port said at the beginning, I was very entertaining, but it really wasn't making sense or flowing. After a while, it was
Yeah.
like, by golly, she's making sense.
Yeah. I know. It was so much fun to see it all kind of come together with our group and how we
Yeah.
really evolved. But yeah, that's the nice thing about heroic public speaking is you get the bonus of the group and the community and folks who have become friends like you. So thanks.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna dive right into it because I'm
Alrighty.
sure you get this question all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The Godfather. And you
Yes.
talk a lot about loyalty.
Yeah.
And loyalty is the new currency.
Mm-hmm.
And you refer so much to the Godfather movie. And me growing up in the Philly area, we have a different view of the mob.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's more intimidation and fear.
Mm-hmm.
But yet you put a whole different spin on it.
Yep.
Not only because of the Godfather movie, but of your life.
Right.
So how, they want to know, and why are you using them as the reference to loyalty?
That's a really excellent question. And it took me a while to figure it out myself, but I tell the story about how I saw The Godfather when I was 11 years old when it first came out. And I was at a drive-in movie with my parents. And we were supposed to be asleep by that time, but I stayed up and I was like, oh my God, I know these people. These are the people I grew up with. So,
Is that true? You
for
were supposed to
better
be
or worse.
asleep?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day when they had drive-in movies, it's like sometimes they would show a kids or family movie and show a rated R movie afterwards when the kids are supposed to go to sleep. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm looking up from the back seat saying like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, I feel like I could have been dropped into the middle of that movie and I would sort of fit in. Because in my neighborhood, we were it was a very mobby, mafia-ish neighborhood because all the big wise guys lived in my town. And I went to school with their sons and daughters and stuff like that. So that's why it sort of just felt like, okay, this is like, feels a little close to home. But what I took from it, honestly, was not so much like, okay, well, let's, go whack somebody or break somebody's knees. It was really more about the family and the loyalty and the bonds. And back in the day, I mean, when the mafia first started hundreds and hundreds of years ago, it was really more about honor and loyalty and taking care of our own. So what happened was in Sicily and Naples, where my grandparents are from, the government and the church basically they wouldn't, they didn't take care of the less fortunate people. They were just like trampled on and had no real support. So the mafia started as kind of this secret society to take care of people in the neighborhoods. So if you had a problem, you went to your local don or whatever. It eventually got corrupted and turned into everything that it is about that. But it started more as a they used to call it the honored society. So, honorable people take care of their family and friends. So, what I took out of that is when I went to work in Los Angeles in the entertainment business, I'm like, oh my God, this is like The Godfather in real life, because it was so ruthless and so crazy. And the people were like all mob bosses, basically the studio heads and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to fall into that role. So I can,
Wait a minute. So
Mhm.
let's back up a little bit and then we'll move on to Los
Yeah, I
Angeles.
know I'm jumping around.
No, I love it. I love it. So I get it. Like
Mhm.
many things, what it started out being, there was a lot of goodness and it took a
Yeah.
little turn because we're humans. That's what we do. I get it.
Yes. It's
But
like politics. It's the same exact thing,
yeah, it's in everything. And
Yeah.
and I do believe, like you, Lou, and I've heard you say it before, but this is the first time it really made sense to me
Mhm.
how it started. It was about protecting your own and family and loyalty and supporting one another.
Right.
And I'm so about that. And I do
Yeah.
believe you're right when you say it's the new currency.
Mhm.
But growing up as a child and going with our kids to school,
Mhm.
were you ever scared? Or it wasn't that way? You
It
thought
was
these were your
totally,
pals and your buddies?
totally normal. My best friend's dad went away for a while, and then he came back, did his time and came back. And it was basically like, you don't rat at your friends, you mind your business, you keep your nose clean, and everything's fine. So I was never, I was like always on the periphery, but close enough to like, oh my God, this is just, it was normal. I also tell the story about like my mom used to take us to this restaurant where I grew up. And then she stopped taking us. And I'm like, why can't we go to the Pewter Pot anymore? It's like, because a guy got whacked there in broad daylight. And like, I don't want to be at a restaurant when there are any bullets flying. So it's like, just another day in Medford. So.
And really, it was that like, yeah, we're just not going there.
Yeah, can't go there anymore. So.
And even from your parents, there wasn't that fear of the mob being there or the mafia. It was just like, yeah, we're fine. They do their thing, we do our thing. Everyone's hunky dory.
Yeah, and we were Italian, and nobody ever bothered us because my dad's, his nickname was Big Louie, so they all thought he was in the mafia. I'm like, he works at a TV station. He's but it's funny because like I had my bike got stolen one time, and I'm like, oh, I'm never going to get that back again. And then the next day it was back because I think people thought, oh my God, you stole the Italian kid's bike. You better bring it back or they'll have us whacked. So.
Because your dad's Big Louie.
Big Louie, yeah, no, you don't want to mess with Big Louie. So anyway, he was not involved, but we were,
I get it. It was good to be Italian in your neighborhood.
It wasn't a bad thing, no. So
okay.
So I really resonated with like The Godfather and the whole idea of family and taking care of each other and loyalty, and it just kind of made sense.
Okay. So I know you probably answered this, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
How many times? Because I know how many times my husband watched it, and he doesn't even have the same relationship.
Yeah.
How many times have you watched The Godfather?
The Godfather is 50 years old, and I watch it I would say over 100 times. Sometimes I'll watch it 3 or 4 or 5 times in a year. So
And do you always get something new out of it?
I do. It's really crazy because I'll notice little nuances and things that like, and like I say, the weird thing is I was using, like if I was in Hollywood and I had a big meeting coming up the next day, I'm like, oh my God, I got to negotiate. I got to do this. I got to do that. I would watch The Godfather the night before just to get psyched up for the festivities in Hollywood. So
Really?
yeah, just so I could hold my own with all the other sharks that were,
And did it
funny.
work?
Yeah, yeah, I rose, pretty quickly. Again, it was loyalty. I made my boss look good. I was fiercely loyal to my
Mm.
supervisor, my boss, and I just moved up the ladder like pretty quickly. So
Yeah, I was reading some of your stories about being there. And one particular one, I thought,
mm.
you sure he wasn't fired for that? I mean, unless I'm just losing my mind, it's something that you wouldn't do a rewrite for
Oh
somebody.
yeah,
There was
yeah. I was working at E Entertainment Television, and this was a long time ago. There was a movie coming out, and we would do like, we would get the actors that were doing movies and do promos and things like that. So we were doing an interview with Nicolas Cage and James Caan, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna meet Sonny from The Godfather, James Caan.
come on.
And Jimmy wanted me to, I was writing the promos, and like, he's like, I don't want to read this, rewrite it. I'm like, I'm going to rewrite it. This is what we need to have it said. So I felt like, oh my God, I just stood up to Sonny Corleone and lived to tell about it. But he was a really nice guy. I mean, he wasn't, so then I went through like my whole life thinking like, oh, you can't boss me around. I told James Caan what to do. I told Sonny to go fuck himself, basically. So
Wait a minute, that is a huge story. I mean, come on, that's a
it's
huge
kind of
story.
one of those weird things that happens. Like, how do you end up in these situations?
But
So
what you're saying is you stood up and said, yeah, we're not rewriting it, but it wasn't like he was kind about it. Like he was like,
yeah,
all right.
yeah, I mean, a lot of those folks have egos, and they're not used to hearing the word no.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I saw that. I'm like, okay, how did you not have that story in your speech unless I missed it? Because
no,
that's,
maybe I'll have to throw that in there. So
I mean, that's a pretty big one though. All right.
I was
Let's
just
go.
like starstruck and excited to meet him. I was, so
You still get even pushback.
yeah, well, I was doing my job.
Yeah. All right. The other one, and you touched on it. So I think we got this numerous times, and by men and women. So I always call them Billy Bob and Sally Bell for fake names. But you mentioned how you were able to stand up for yourself, and by watching The Godfather, it gave you courage
Mhm.
for some of these other sharks.
Yeah.
The question is, and I know you probably need more details, but that fine line of how do you have loyalty for people that you
Mhm.
feel like don't have your back was a
Right.
question they asked over and over. Like you're working for people
Yeah.
and you want to be loyal to them.
Mhm.
What do you think? Like if you don't feel like they have your back?
Right. Well, I mean, it's a two-way street because my boss took care of me, so I took care of him, and it was like our little department was like a family, and we stuck together. We went through a lot of stuff together. It was really more about like, okay, now we have to go negotiate with so and so, or now we're meeting with this other studio and we want them to buy our production or our TV show. So within the department itself, we were really tight. It was only if somebody else tried to mess with us
Gotcha.
that would start to play the loyalty card. So the reason that again I kind of moved up quickly because my company was growing fast and I was really loyal and people knew they could depend on me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I wasn't, you just don't, if you're flaky, then forget it. You got to be solid.
So what happened? Why did you end up leaving? Run its
Um,
course, different lifestyle?
because I had twins. And it's like my
Oh,
life
yes, the
got turned
twins.
upside down. So that was part of it. The other part is that my division I worked for Fox Kids Network and some other things that got sold to Disney, and I knew, I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I'm like, okay, well, we're getting sold to another company, and it's a whole different ball game over there. So it just seemed like the timing was right to come back east where I grew up and let my kids grow up with their cousins and grandmother and grandfather and all that kind of stuff. So I was like,
When
all
you
right,
came back, is that when you went to work for yourself immediately?
not right away, but pretty soon after that. So I did, more television and radio stuff in Boston. And it was kind of like, I did this 20 years ago. So I decided to go off on my own.
And now you're the king of making videos, man. I mean, your videos stand out, Lou. I had
Oh,
people
thanks.
look up your stuff on the social media
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, holy crap. I'm like, wait a minute. That's what he does. Look at it. It's not like he's
Yeah, I've been doing it for a while. Yeah.
and so they want to know how,
Mm-hmm.
why, where to post. I got so many. I
Oh,
mean,
good,
what's
good.
the algorithm? I mean, where should they post their videos? How
Yeah.
do they do it? I mean, by the way, he does have courses in it. I'm just saying.
Mhm. Yeah, and for people who are introverts and don't necessarily like, I mean, I like networking to a point, but I get really, like after I did our 3 days of HPS, I have to come home and roll up in a ball for a week because I'm peopled out. So online video and social media is ideal for introverts because I can sit here and I get to talk to you, but I don't have to get on a plane, and I don't have to, I have sweatpants on with a hole in them, but I'm only seen from here up, so I'm good. And it's just a great platform and format for people who are not as outgoing as other people. So, because I can talk to the little, I just have to look at the cameras right there, and it's perfect. And I always tell folks, when people say, well, you do a lot of video, what do you do? How do you do it? It's like, you got to find what I call your video sweet spot. Like, some people love doing live videos. Some people love doing video podcasting like this. I like to, produce stuff behind the scenes and then post it. Some people like YouTube, some people like LinkedIn. So you don't have to be everywhere. You just have to find out where are you comfortable and where is your audience. So
That's a good point, because I think, like, this one guy said, I feel like I'm supposed to be on every platform. And I didn't think that was the case. So I'm glad you said that. Like, find your audience and where they're spending the most time looking for you.
Right. So, and there's people like, oh my God, TikTok, Instagram, I have to be here, I have to be there. It's like, well, first of all, if you're in one place like YouTube, you can take that same video and put it in Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, whatever. And secondly, you don't even necessarily have to be everywhere. You just have to find your core 3 platforms. So I focus mostly on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And I do a little bit of TikTok, but all I'm doing is taking my YouTube video and reposting it to TikTok or Instagram. So I'm not reinventing the wheel there.
Yes, Lou. Unfortunately, I was a little late in the game to realize you can just repost them and not redo them. And for like a year there, I was redoing it because I like going live on each one. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. You just, it was one of your things, because don't you teach a course?
Yeah, I mean, like one of the things is, like, when I talk about repurposing, I'm like, if you go live on a third-party app, like which one do I use? Now the name's escaping me, it's so obvious. Live stream. So basically any of these platforms like Restream or whatever, if I do a live video, I can go live to Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, at the same exact time. So I'm like, why not hit everybody rather than trying to say, oh, I have to do LinkedIn over here and I have to do Facebook over there. So it's, relatively easy to repurpose that stuff and look like you're everywhere, even though, and the other thing is I'll schedule stuff ahead of time. I mean, like earlier this year, I went to Italy for 3 weeks and I had videos going every single day. So it was like I was still there, even though I was screwing around.
Yeah.
So
is that difficult to do, or it's the same thing?
no, it's again, it's like, just like, if I schedule an email ahead of time, I can schedule a video ahead of time. So I knew I had stuff coming out twice a week that I had ready to post on Facebook or YouTube. So I could kind of like duck out of sight and still be online and still have visibility and still be, basically making money by selling courses and coaching and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's where the video is like, I kind of call it like, oh, you can clone yourself and you can have a whole army of little videos out there doing the work for you while you're off gallivanting around somewhere.
And they don't even know it.
Yeah.
So, a lot of my people that are doing podcasts now, they've switched to StreamYard. Are you familiar with StreamYard?
Yes. Yeah, that's the name. That's the exact one that I was thinking of, StreamYard. And I just don't know why.
You can
COVID
do it all
brain,
over.
I forgot the name, but StreamYard, you can go live simultaneously to several platforms. And what's even better than that is you can do like what I call the Seinfeld effect. Just repeat it. Like if I do a video on Monday, I'm going to repost it on Wednesday. I'm going to repost it on Saturday because not everybody's going to see it the first time. So I use StreamYard.
That's a good point.
I syndicate that content. Like I'm saying, like, okay, I'm going to do a repeat. I'm going to run, how many times Seinfeld's on 18 different TV stations, 10 times a day. So, and that show's been off the air for 20 years or something. So why not use use that Seinfeld repeat to continue getting exposure?
That's true. I was just at a conference for women in marketing, and the woman up there said, you guys are making it way too difficult. She started looking like every day there's a new post and a new thing. She's like, I don't even do that. I make 3 up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, maybe that just works for her. But now you're telling me that's the way to go because you never know who's going to see it.
Right. So I just, use the same content. I mean, if it's got to be good content, obviously it all starts with like, all right, you have to have something that people want to see and something, that adds to whatever you're trying to do. So for me, it might be, I'm going to show you how to do YouTube such and such. And I'll do a live video and then I'll repost that live video and rebroadcast it. Sometimes, weeks afterwards, because like, oh, well, all these people said they didn't see it or they want to see it again. Because, Facebook, Twitter, all those things are sort of like a stream. And when my boat floats by, if you're not on the riverbank watching it, I want to give you another chance to see it.
I don't know if this is true, but you're making me think opposite of what I was thinking before, which is it's more about the quality of it than the quantity.
Yes, definitely.
And I get confused about that because I hear people say, you got to post, 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 you got to post constantly. But what you're saying, but it could be the same quality content.
Yes. Yeah. Just do, repost. Sometimes I'll do, the other thing I do is like, if I have a video that was kind of popular, I'll double down and do another one on that subject. So again, I'm trying to create good content and then making it readily available as often as possible rather than something new every day and scrambling to always make new content. So,
well, Lou, I think a lot of people, including me, are going to be redoing their marketing plan.
Yes, it's really more about, you got to be strategic. You don't want to just kind of throw it out anywhere. But I know like, okay, I have to, if I'm doing a course that starts next week and I'm using the same video to promote the course, I'm posting it once a day on Facebook and I'm posting it like 3 times a week on LinkedIn or whatever. So it's really just about, knowing the strategy behind it. And that's where I, what I really talk about most in my day job is video marketing strategy. I talk about what camera to use and all that, but it's really more about the strategy and having a plan. And, my plan is basically to, hit people over the head with it until they get it. Right? I mean, what is it? People say it takes 7 or 11 times for people to see something for it to register. So I need to give them a chance to have it register.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because one of my friends said, please ask Lou about, I just heard you have to see it 16 times.
Oh my God, it's 16 now?
I don't know, before you push the button. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that's a lot of times. That reminds me of when you hear about how many thoughts you have a day. I just heard that you make 35,000 decisions a day.
Yeah.
Is that whack? Like that's like what? Just bending my finger,
Like
you know?
right. So there's a lot, I mean, there's a lot of noise online. So if you want to break through the clutter, you have to have something that's, pretty decent quality, but more importantly, you want folks to see it until they kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, now it makes sense. And it's like people that take this to the extreme, it's like the crazy, we just finished that political season. And I know where you are and where I am, every friggin' commercial on TV was a political ad.
All of them.
Right. And they do that because in television and online, frequency works. As much as we hate it, we're so sick of the ads. It's about, frequency. That's what we used to talk about in the old days of TV. It was advertising was all about reach and frequency. You got to reach the right people and you got to let them see it enough so it registers.
Oh my God. And the thing is, I don't even watch TV that much, but even for sports, like with the Phillies, I was watching it, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to, there's one thing you don't want to record, like when you're watching the World Series.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh my God, I just can't anymore.
It was unbelievable. So,
right.
Yeah.
All right. So how do you put this in, which I'm trying to figure out right now, but I think I got it. Here you are with video marketing and branding. And then you got The Godfather and loyalty.
Right.
Do they work together or are they two separate things for you?
It's kind of like a Reese's peanut butter cup, like chocolate and peanut butter wouldn't necessarily work together, but I'm making it work together because where I go with the video and that kind of stuff is really about building relationships with your clients, building loyalty with your customers.
Yeah.
And it's really about engagement. And that's how I figure like, okay, well, if I can be authentic and be myself, and I may drop the F-bomb every once in a while, but people will identify with it and they'll either like it or they won't. And, the expression that like you may be too much for some people, but those aren't your people. So
yeah, I get that a lot.
But the more you put, and I put my personality into our efforts online, on podcasts, on video, the more people we're going to attract. And that's how I think, you build loyalty. And that's where I make the connection between video and loyalty.
No, I think it fits perfectly. And by the way, Reese's cup fits perfectly too.
Yeah. So.
All right. We need to go back. Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
Yeah.
I love that title.
Best line in the movie, I think.
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli. Oh my God.
Yes. So in the Godfather movie, that's Clemenza's line, played by an actor, Peter. Now I can't remember his name, but anyway. So that line, believe it or not, was ad-libbed. It wasn't in the script. But he was Italian and he knew that no matter what business you have to do, his wife told him not to forget the cannolis in this previous scene. So he had to take the cannoli. He's not going to leave the cannoli behind. I mean, so I look at it as like it's this sort of warped, the mafia's work-life balance is leave the gun, take the cannoli. Yeah, we had to just shoot this guy, but don't forget the cannolis in the back seat because my wife will kill me if I don't bring him home. So that's just because in that society, in that thing, the killing stuff had become so normal that it was like, oh yeah, don't forget the cannolis. So
I saw that in your, I was like, wait a minute. I don't remember it in The Godfather, but then again, I haven't seen it as many times. And also something that nobody knows about me, but I'm going to tell you. I watch a movie and I don't remember I watched the movie a month later. So my husband and son always say to me, wow, it's like a whole new experience to you.
Yeah. So
and I love that line. Is there any stories of you growing up in that neighborhood? You said your family was Italian.
Yeah.
That, like, I know you said you weren't scared, but is there any time or any story that you can remember that stuck out in your head that had an impact on your life moving forward?
Wow. That's a really good question.
But I'm sure there are tons of stories, but some story that
I mean, I think
sticks
one of
out,
the things
like
that
something
I,
an uncle said, something an aunt did, the neighbor, that you're like, I'm gonna remember that.
right. Well, I'll tell you, I know that my across the street neighbor, who was 1 year ahead of me in school, you know, we knew that there was something going on at that house because, like, you'd see the Cadillacs at all hours and guys going in and out, and you know, big sort of typical mob-looking guy
Across the street.
right across the street. Yeah. So, and then I just remember, like, okay, that you know, I would see this guy like every day, and then one day I didn't see him, and I didn't see him for a week or a month or whatever, and I didn't want to ask Louise, the across the street neighbor, because I was afraid, like, I just was embarrassed to ask her. But
Yeah.
apparently, this guy snitched on someone, and then you know, I asked my parents what happened to Mr. Villani, and they said, oh, he moved to Florida. Like, yeah, I know what moved to Florida means now. So from that, I just got like, well, you know what? I'm going to mind my business and keep my nose clean, and I'm not going to snitch, and I'm not going to be a rat, because I don't want to end up like the guy across the street.
And do you
So
feel that same way to today?
yeah, I mean, I just try to, keep my mouth shut. I mean, kind of, it's like, office gossip and stuff like that. It's like, I just, I don't want to get in trouble by talking too much. So I say as little as possible.
See, that's a life lesson that stuck with you.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it was like I said, like, oh my God, the guy that my best, well, not my best friend, but my friend from school's dad is gone. He's just gone.
It's gone because he snitched.
Right. Whereas my other friend who went to Florida to prison came back, and everything was like normal after 2 years, because he didn't rat, he did his time, he came back, and he started right where he left off. He was just like a bookie or something, not like a hitman or anything, but he didn't snitch, and he lived to tell about it. So those two examples were kind of like, all right, I better I better mind my freaking business. And
so are you saying, Lou, if we tell you secrets, you won't tell anybody?
yeah, of course.
Zip.
Zip. Yep.
All right. So the line.
Well, and it's like that's like the thing too, like with clients and NDAs and all that. I don't need paperwork, because you have my word, and that's enough. I don't need to have an NDA or contract or something, because if I say it, I'm not gonna, That's the other thing from The Godfather and the whole Italian thing, is like, your word is gospel, and your reputation is everything at the end of the day. So it's like, if you want to have a good reputation, you gotta not screw up too many times.
Lou, years ago, I was very, very fortunate when I started out in business that I had some amazing mentors and CEOs and CFOs of different companies that I trained.
Mhm.
So they would treat me like Philadelphia's favorite daughter and pass on their business knowledge to me, which I felt like I should be paying them, because I learned so much. Like, I didn't go to school for business, but I mean, come on, it was built in.
Yeah.
And the thing that they taught me was the handshake deal.
Mhm.
And they really drilled it in that if you are sitting there arguing over a contract, don't go into business with that person.
Right.
Because your handshake, that should be enough. You should look at them and know, my word's my bond, and move forward.
Yeah.
If you're sitting there having to go through and you're arguing, fighting, it's going to be a bad deal. You're not going to get along.
Mhm.
And that's why I did business.
Mhm.
Handshake deal, you're done. But here's the thing, Lou. And I don't know if it's good or bad, but one time that out of all the business deals I did, somebody that I was thinking about your line, like friends close and enemies closer.
Yeah.
One of somebody I really, really loved in business, I did that handshake deal, and I didn't back it up with the contract, and it bit me in the butt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never saw it coming. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, just really, and I had nothing in writing, not even on a napkin. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking, yeah, that was a mistake, but I still don't regret the way I did business, because there was more that worked out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And that's why
I had-
even in The Godfather, the Consigliere was a lawyer. You got to have, I mean, you got to have the lawyers. And at some point, obviously you're going to put things in writing. I'm just saying that, um, if I make
Yeah,
a
I think that wasn't a good decision. I'm like, I should have handshake deal, but let's write it down somewhere.
yeah, like it's like trust but verify, right? So, yeah, I don't mind having the paperwork. I'm just saying that,
Yeah,
because otherwise you will. I mean, in business, obviously, we got to have the lawyers. So,
yeah, I know. And I took it to the extreme, and I remember saying to them, but you said handshakes deal. They're like, we didn't say not to get the paperwork. We just meant
right.
you go into business with someone that you believe that's the way it worked, but you need the backup. It's
Right.
like my finance guy said, I'm not saying you shouldn't trust your employees, Sandy, but I
Mhm.
wouldn't leave the lid off the cookie jar.
Yeah.
And I remember that.
Yeah, that's good. That's really
Yeah.
funny. Yeah.
All
So
right.
yeah, that's just and that's the other thing is like once that person burned you, like they're out of your life. So I look at it like, oh, all right, well, I paid this much money to have that idiot out of my life.
Ooh.
Because like what do they say on Shark Tank? The guy always says, you're dead to me.
Yes, yes.
Evan O'Leary, another Massachusetts native, always says, well, you're dead to me.
You're dead to me. That's it. I'm done. You're out.
Right.
Lou, why are 77% of brands they disappear and nobody cares about them? I read that.
I know that's an unbelievable statistic. 77% of brands, almost 8 in 10 brands could absolutely go away tomorrow and no one would care. I mean, can you imagine if like Nike like wasn't a brand anymore, or Coke, or so? I think it's just because there are so many choices now, and the consumer is smarter because of the internet, and I can go on Amazon and look at the reviews before I buy something.
Yeah.
So brand loyalty in a lot of ways is gone, and that's why it's so much harder, and you have to make that personal connection to build that brand loyalty. So, and there are very few, I don't know, there are like Apple, like I've never not bought an Apple computer. They have brand loyalty because they've kind of earned it. And
Yeah.
if I go to the Mac store, I know that, most of the time they're going to help me out, fix it. And so, but unless you have that connection, then there's no loyalty, that personal connection.
Yeah. I was thinking about you where the local coffee shop we have, and they have 3 of them. And the
Mhm.
kids love working there. And the owner's so nice, and he treats the employees with respect
Mhm.
and kindness. And he's not going to ask them to do something he's not going to do. And so the kids, even after they go off to college, will come back there and visit. And
Mhm.
it's the loyalty of we have each other's backs, and they don't want to screw
Right.
one another over, even though it's not like, it's this high paying job, you're
Right.
working at a local coffee shop. He has 3, but he's really loyal to his employees, not just the clients. And I
Mhm.
know you think that's huge.
Yeah, yeah. Right. And what you said before is I'll never ask you to do something I wouldn't do myself. I mean, when I worked in Los Angeles and I had a pretty big department, about 25 people, and I think that, I had their loyalty and we had each other's backs because I would do the same stuff that they would do. We'd have to like before big trade shows, we'd have to like, oh, we have to make these goodie bags and we have to have an assembly line. And like, I didn't go out to dinner with all the other execs. I stayed with my troops and did what they.
Yeah.
So those are the little things that, kind of build that loyalty, or just invest in your employees and they will pay you back with loyalty.
I agree, because I was in the fitness business. I owned health clubs, and it's not like most of them, this is their career. Some of them it was. And we didn't really have that much turnover as much as other people. But I loved them. I mean, I would have done anything for them. I mean, they were really part of, my family.
Yeah.
And I never thought it of as loyalty until I was reading your stuff and watching. I never told you this,
Mhm.
but I remember you talking about it up on stage at HPS, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm a good boss. They pay them well. But really the loyalty came because I was loyal to them too.
Yeah, it's definitely a two-way street. I tell that story about how Wegmans has really low turnover and great employees. Like they take their deli guy and send him to France to take cheese courses. It's like,
No, 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 no.
yeah. And so they send, like, oh, okay, well, if you're going to work in our deli, you need to really be a cheeseologist. So we're going to send you to France so you can learn everything you need to know about cheese.
Wait a minute, I could be a cheeseologist.
Yeah, I think I might want to get a job at Wegmans. And that's the thing. I mean, especially now, like this whole quiet quitting, great resignation thing. If you
Yeah.
want to, not have your folks leave for a different job, you gotta show that you actually give a crap.
So maybe it's a good thing because people are going to actually give a crap a little more. We hope.
Yeah, yeah. So, but that's this whole, like, especially with the pandemic and the great resignation and all these people leaving their jobs. It's like, well, how do you hold on to good people? Because now, like my 25-year-old twins both work and have big corporate jobs. They have never worked in an office ever. They went right from college to remote work, 100% remote. So how do you build
Whoa.
loyalty when you're spread out all over the country and you're not at the next cubicle or seeing somebody at the water cooler every half hour,
I don't know if I'd like that, Lou.
I
That would
know.
be hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're really missing something, but my point is the employer has to work that much harder
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
generate loyalty because they're not seeing them every day. They're not going to lunch with them. I mean, I went to lunch with my boss 3 times a week. It was like
You're right. It's so
actually
much easier.
I commuted with him. I mean, he would pick me up on the way to the office and we'd drive in together. So like we were like, thick as thieves.
Yeah, you're right. I wonder what they will do. Like, how do you create that loyalty if everyone's remote?
Right. Well, I mean, those employee retreats become that much more important. And I know that even with the remote, like my daughter's company, they'll have meetups and they'll, all right, well, we're going to at least twice a month, we're going to come into the office
Oh,
and meet for
gotcha. Yeah.
cocktails or whatever. So, but
Yeah.
it's not the same as it was, when we were coming up.
Yeah, that's true.
9 to 5, you go to work, you do your thing, and that's that.
Lou, I'm sitting here and it's driving me crazy. And I've gotten in almost everything I wanted to ask you and most of the questions from the people. But if I'm wrong, just tell me. But something about a mailbox.
Oh, the mailbox.
And I was like, oh, please let him tell the mailbox story. And that's like, well, maybe it wasn't Lou. Maybe it wasn't Lou.
No, it was me. Yeah, I remember that.
Can you please tell I call it the mailbox story. I don't
Sure.
know what you.
Well, when we were going through HPS, heroic public speaking, we were taught to, like, I have these Post-it notes, and I had Post-it notes up all over the wall. And I was remembering stories from growing up. It's like, okay, you have to have stories, you have to have stats, you have to have, all these different pieces of a keynote speech. And when I was thinking of the stories, like I had completely forgotten about that. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh my God, that lady down the street that yelled at us all the time and called the cops on us. And then I remembered that what happened was the shortcut to my friend's house was sort of through this lady's kind of backyard, but it wasn't like, garden or anything. It was just like kind of a hill.
Or trampling flowers.
No trampling roses. But anyway, we cut through the lady's yard. We felt like, oh, that's our yard. I mean, we needed to get back and forth to our friend's house. And at one point, the lady was kind of grouchy. She wasn't Italian, so she wouldn't have done this probably if she was. Yeah, she called the cops, and the cops came and scared us away, and gave us kind of a scare. So I decided to send her a message about did not appreciate having the cops called on me. So.
Oh God.
Total coincidence. I found a dead mouse in the gutter. I don't think it was a rat. I think it was a mouse. And I decided, well, I'll put it in her mailbox just to kind of send her a message that we don't like to be ratted out, or in this case, moused out, I guess. So I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then I was like, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old. And I go back and I made the mistake of telling my mother, and she had like kind of a thick Boston accent. He said, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, go get the goddamn mouse out of her mailbox. She'll give the old battle axe a heart attack. You know, like thick Boston accent.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Did you have to get it out?
I went to get it out, but it was already gone. She must have got it. You never called the cops on us ever again after that. She like we
But
sent
did
a
she
message.
never said anything to you? Did you still cut through the yard?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Okay. Now that was the story, but what I forgot to ask is why did you tell your mom?
I don't know. I just thought I was so full of myself. Like, hey, I taught Mrs. So-and-so a
You know, your
lesson.
mom was going to be way to go, Lou.
Yeah, she didn't appreciate it.
You think?
So I think like secretly she thought it was funny, but she knew that she needed to tell me that, you know, that's not nice. Go get it out of the mailbox. But by the time I got back to the mailbox, it was too late. So so I mean, it's not like in the Godfather, there's a scene where you know, they put the horse's head in the movie producer's bed to send him a
Yeah,
message.
I remember that.
So that was my version of the
The
horse.
horse's head.
I didn't
You
have
take
access
it
to
down
it.
a bit, you know?
Yeah.
So do you really think it was an influence from your neighborhood? Like, I'm going to teach her a lesson so she never does
Yeah,
this to us again?
she ratted us out. I mean, like,
Oh, that's right. She was a snitch.
yeah, you don't do that in our neighborhood. So, but I don't know. I was just being a dumb kid,
Yeah.
but I just thought it was,
Yeah,
it
but
was
did your
funny
friends
because
think you
I
were
was
cool?
remembering all these things from like I'd completely forgotten for 30, 40 years. And then, oh yeah, the mailbox thing. So
Yeah, and you know what? Like I was saying, did your friends think you were cool for doing that? Like, yeah, Lou.
yeah, I'm sure they
Yeah.
egged me on. So
Yeah, you were the hero.
yes.
Well, Lou, I'm so glad that I got to have you on and just tell a little bit more of your story of how the loyalty with the Godfather, with how you grew up and how it combines with marketing video, because it all makes sense to me now.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a stretch, but you can definitely make them into
No, I
right.
really do. I understand it way more than I did at HPS. And you're right. I mean, the things that you took from it are
Mhm.
values that we all should have.
Yeah, without the, you know, breaking of knees and stuff. So leave that part
Yeah, without the intimidation. I get it.
out. Right.
Although I do like that you practiced and watched The Godfather before you went into a big meeting.
I would just check, yeah, I'd have to psych myself up, you know. So that's how I and that's one of the reasons I watched it so much. Like every time I watched it, I thought, oh, I'll try the such and such method, or I'll do what the Consigliere did. And
Did you really?
yeah, I just thought, like, to me, the Godfather movie was or the Godfather book was a business book. So
No, you're joking. No, you're
yeah,
no.
it's great
But you would
business.
refer to it.
Yeah, you know, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Never tell anyone outside the family what you're thinking. And of course, I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
You're right. There are a lot of, I don't think I ever would have said this before, but I just might read the book.
Yeah, it's an interesting
which is
novel.
upstairs on my like,
Yeah.
he loves. I can't wait for him to see this. He loves The Godfather. Love. All right, Lou. I gotta ask you a few rapid fire questions. You ready?
Okay. All right.
The ones that they definitely were like at the hit. Like I usually have 25 I look at, and then they picked a few.
Okay.
You only got a few. One quality that you have that you believe makes you a successful leader.
Wow. I just in fact, Michael Port said it many years ago, and I still think of it today. Business is about making commitments and keeping commitments. So I keep my commitments and I do what I say I'm going to do. That's the secret. And Michael just, you know, sort of echoed that when I heard him say that a lot. I mean, I remember that from like 10 years ago, he would say that. He'd probably still say the same thing today, making commitments and keeping commitments.
That's a good one. Of all the mentors you have,
Mhm.
who would be on the top of your list?
Oh, that's easy. My dad. Hmm. I mean, I went into the same business as him. He was in the television business, and that's what I did. So I knew from a pretty early age I wanted to do what my dad does. I mean, he was a designer and stuff like that, so I don't do that, but I did. I went into the same industry.
Wow.
Yeah,
Are you friends with anybody from childhood to this day? Childhood.
yeah. I just saw my friend from high school Sunday. Hmm.
Do you talk about neighborhood stories?
Yeah, we actually talked about a friend of ours who's still in jail.
Okay, then.
Um, like, oh, did Brian get out yet?
Ah, good times, good times.
Oh yeah.
Are you doing what you went to school for?
Um, More or less. I mean, I was a communications manager at Boston College. So I'm not like doing the TV stuff that I studied, but it's all video. It's all on
Yeah,
screen.
yeah.
And like our kids, they don't make distinctions between an iPhone and a big TV and an iPad. It's all just screens to them.
Oh, that's true.
So I guess you could say, online video is not that much different than the TV business. So
That's true. That's true. Okay. What's the biggest challenge you have daily in your business?
wow. Um, for me, it's focus because I have ADHD and I'm trying to actually work on something like a keynote speech for a given amount of time. So,
Yeah, keep it on. Okay, this is a wackadoo one. Do
mhm.
you have a reoccurring dream that you remember vividly?
I always have this dream that I'm at where my dad worked at WBZ in his office in Boston. For some reason, it's like, oh my God, every dream is with my dad at WBZ.
Really?
Yeah, it's so weird. Over and over and over again.
So it's a happy dream.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a scary, like, it's more like, hey, like I'm about to go get the best milkshake ever at the cafeteria. And then I wake up before I get to have the milkshake.
Yeah, yeah. This you kind of answered, but what was it that you liked the most about your childhood?
Um, I mean, looking back now, we didn't have iPhones and all that stuff, just that we went out and played and explored and got in trouble and built tree houses. And I think there was a certain amount of freedom that maybe kids today don't have, or not the same kind of experience. Like, we did stuff.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
didn't play video games. We went
yeah.
out and climbed trees and we had chestnut trees in my yard, so we'd have chestnut fights. Like those guys would go over there, would all peg each other with chestnuts and stuff. So we did stuff.
The things we did, like pummeled each other with rocks from the top of the hill.
How are we still alive?
We get away with it. All right. What is one of your favorite things you like doing in your spare time?
When I came back from Italy after seeing all the Vespas and scooters, I bought a little scooter.
You did?
And I've been like every afternoon when I can't look at the computer anymore, I take my scooter. I live like 3 miles from the beach, so I drive up and down the coast on my little scooter and pretend I'm in Italian. Pretend I'm driving down the Italian Riviera or something. So
Oh my God.
that's a relatively new hobby.
Wait a minute. I just watched, I think is it called White Lotus or whatever? It was
Oh
taken
yeah.
in Italy with a scooter.
Yeah. So that was the little piece of Italy that I brought home with me.
That's a fun piece.
Hmm.
Okay, we're going to leave on this one.
All righty.
Do you have a morning routine, like something you do every morning to get yourself into the day, psyched up?
Coffee and email.
Coffee.
Not really a great morning routine, but I mean, and honestly, the pugs, the dogs wake me up, and we have a pug, a relatively new pug, Regina, and she'll like literally walk on your head because she wants to eat. So like little pug paws all over my forehead in the morning. So that's
Okay,
why.
why pugs? I mean, I love animals. Why did you
I
pick
don't know,
pugs?
like well, we got a rescue pug, 10, 12 years ago. And ever since then, we've been like pug people.
Okay,
So they're funny and they're stubborn and they have a lot of personality. So
well, that makes sense.
yeah,
Wait, they're funny?
yeah, they just do the funniest, weirdest things. They make funny noises and they, pee standing up on their hind legs. I mean, they do all kinds of wacky stuff. So
All
they,
right, Lou.
they keep you amused.
Before we go, first of all, thank you. I'm so
Thank
glad this
you.
worked out because I had
Yeah.
it for a different date and then the guide, it all worked together. I
Mhm.
want you to tell us every which way we can find you for the marketing video, if they want to
Mhm.
book you for keynotes or workshops. Tell us everything.
Okay. If you want to see we did speaker reels. Remember that was fun, right? If you want to see the video of my keynote, that's at loubortonespeaks.com. And everything else, all the video stuff is just at loubortone.com. And I'm Lou Bortone on all the socials.
Do you do courses in the marketing video or do I see
do.
that on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I do a lot of courses. You can find those at loubortone.com as well. Things, on YouTube or Facebook Live and things like that. What tools to use.
And can
Stuff.
individuals book you or is it only
Yeah, I
corporations?
have several private clients that I work with. So yeah.
That would be fun. I could see you being a blast. All right, my let's keep it real people.
Thanks,
Lou kept
Sandy.
it real. He was fun, great. We had a blast. This is what I want you to do. Share it and like it with as many people as you can. Lou, you would appreciate that, right?
Yes.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
We'll put it on all platforms. I'm sure Lou's going to play with it. And you know what I'm going to say? Until next time, toodles. Bye, Lou.
Thank you.